Back to you, Jen and Yas.
Thank you, Maurice.
Yeah, interesting that such a tame line came to a boiling moment. And I'm with Hikaru on this one as well, by the way. He felt after the move F5, F4 was played that suddenly, well, he may get some chances and things could work out quite well.
And Kasparov agreed with you, so there you go.
And then came Queen G6, and as Hikaru correctly stated, he can't overplay his hand. Otherwise, he was risking losing the game, and he made the prudent choice, the wise choice, because he had no choice. He had to take the repetition.
And with that, after that exciting draw between Carlsen and Nakamura, we are going to take a little break and be back for the finale of Aronian Kempski.
Lovely.
Hey, and welcome back to the Sinquefield Cup. We already have a result in today. The much-awaited Nakamura-Carlsen game was not quite as bloody as we would have hoped, but one nice thing is that both players promised excitement and an all-out fight tomorrow.
Oh, yes.
Carlsen said he was going to try to win, try to press, despite the fact that a draw is likely going to secure first, or at least a tie for first.
Right.
And of course, Nakamura knows he must win tomorrow with black.
Yes. In both cases, I think we'll see both players go not recklessly, but all out, because the way Gata is played, he's vulnerable even with the white pieces, as we've seen, and Hikaru has won a number of their key matchups. Remember in the U.S. Championship?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
That he needed to win with black.
That was a cool game.
And he got it.
And here is the prize money breakdown. We've got $70,000 for first place, $50,000 for second, $30,000 for third, and $20,000 for fourth place. Now, many people who are good at math are going to figure out who's likely to get fourth place.
Right. Unfortunately, Gata's got a lock on that, it would appear. But, okay, we have this key position, and after some futzing around, Rook B1 was played. And the question is how Gata is going to hold the position. I was thinking that Gata would likely play a move like Queen F7, eyeballing this pawn on C4. I thought that you're not immediately threatening to capture the pawn, but bringing the queen off the back rank seems the most likely move. If I were white, and I started thinking to myself, I'm in a situation, let's just say, that I had to go all out for the win, this move, E3, E4, is the only lever that I have in the position.
A lever means like opening a door with your pawn.
Exactly.
Opening up the E-file. And it looks particularly logical with our piece placement, with our rook on E1 and with the king being a little bit airy. Now, I wonder from Aronian's point of view, he's on an even score now. In order to have a chance of winning this tournament, he has to win this game. And not only does he have to win this game, he would probably have to win with black against Carlsen.
That's a big ask.
So is it even in his mind, or do you think he's just playing the position?
No, he's definitely playing this position, and he's just hoping that he'll be in a situation where he's got an opportunity for playing in the first place. His first half, as we know, was terrible. He scored a blunderful loss in round one and then had two draws.
Yeah. Can you imagine how different the tournament would be? Like if that one move, it was going to be a draw, and then he just missed this one move, knight to d7, the tournament would be totally different.
Right.
And Carlsen would actually have a dominating lead if it wasn't for that
Exactly.
slip up. And actually, Aronian would have a better chance of winning.
Exactly. That just one move in that one game has made such an impact in the tournament.
And it's so painful because in a round robin, as opposed to a Swiss tournament or something, or a match where you can kind of recover and say that everything was different, and really in a round robin, it's like it would have been pretty much the same, except you would have had a half point more.
Yeah, and it's a big half point. These guys claw for every inch and every half point. That's what chess is about at the highest levels. Again, just today, in reflection on the game, we have this grandmaster draw in chess where the two grandmasters really don't poke at one another. And I really had the feeling today that Magnus had just too easy a time.
I see what you're saying. I mean, it's funny because when we talked about, on one hand, I was excited that Nakamura didn't go for the queen trade line, but in a certain way, it's actually more aggressive to play for the main line.
Yes.
So it's like it feels less aggressive because you're trading queens, but it's actually more aggressive because it's more theoretically viable, and he's kind of testing Magnus in the main waters rather than going for an offshoot, in which case Magnus is much more likely to find a comfortable equality or close to equality. That being said, Magnus didn't think it was such a bad idea. So
yeah,
obviously he's biased.
Well, yes, exactly. Well, in his particular case, he did confess that he had a little trouble with this particular approach that Hikaru took today, but then he just looked at the games of Vladimir Kramnik and said, okay, that's the way I'm supposed to deal with it. That's the way I will deal with it. And if it was good enough for Vladimir Kramnik, it was good enough for Magnus Carlsen.
All right, and we have Grandmaster Maurice Ashley with some thoughts of his own.
Yes, Jen, just reflecting on your thoughts about Aronian. Remember, Aronian was under terrific pressure against Magnus Carlsen. He could have easily lost that game as well, and that would have been a serious disaster for him and an even more dominant performance for Magnus. So maybe he's counting his lucky stars that he is able to stave off defeat in that game, and now with the opportunity anyway of maybe being able to defeat Gadakomsky, and he's actually still in reach of winning the whole thing. Also, don't forget, there's a big difference between second place and third place in terms of the prize money. It's $50,000 to $30,000. So ending up in second place, anywhere near second, will be very good for him. So he wants to win today, and I suspect he's going to try real hard for that. There's something else I'd like to point out. We talked about this very early on, just in the very first few minutes of the game, the time situation. Gadakomsky now down to 15 minutes for approximately 14 more moves. Now, of course, he can pull it off. We've seen that top grandmasters at this level do this all the time. But with his lack of form, it might prove critical in the last few minutes of this time control. And certainly Levon will want to keep up the pressure in this situation to kind of help his opponent, help him to win the game. Back to you, Jen and Yaz.
Help me to help you. I like it. We've got a couple comments coming into our hashtag, Sinquefield Cup. Somebody asked about the link to buy the beautiful chess pieces, the DGT-enabled House of Staunton pieces here made specifically for the Sinquefield Cup. And I did post that link on the US Chess Twitter, so
lovely.
You can go ahead and find them. And it only will set you back $1,300, actually $1,295.
A bargain. A bargain. I just happen to know how much effort and work goes into. They're really masterfully crafted sets. Really, really beautiful.
Oh, it's art, right?
It is.
And the World Chess Hall of Fame argues that as well. And they definitely have some pieces that will cost quite a lot more than $1,200.
They've got some of those ivory sets that are just gorgeous.
Oh, yeah, the ancient ones in the Krumiller exhibition that's up now.
Fabulous.
We also got a comment about how the Carlsen game was perfectly timed. That's from our friend Tarjei Svensson, who's been tweeting at us a lot during this tournament. And he said that he gets to watch Real Madrid get beaten up in La Liga. So a soccer reference. Magnus Carlsen, of course, a big sports fan, but especially soccer.
Yes. Well, Norway and Europe, soccer is the world's #1 sport. We did have this move, Queen F7 by Gadakomsky. Again, I've been suggesting that White's main line of play is to get in this freeing break E3, E4, and in that case, the rook on E1 would be attacking the queen. So this move, Queen F7, dodges that potential bullet while setting up an opportunity of capturing this pawn on C4. That's not an immediate problem, and with the move Queen D2, Levon basically says, okay, I am still aspiring to play the move E3, E4, and there is no threat. You can't capture this pawn on C4 because of this absolute pin, which would cost you your queen for a bishop. So that is not a threat, but in the future, this pawn is hanging Black could make an effort with the move king g7 to set that up as a potential capture, but not in the immediacy.
Right. So you're expecting king g7?
I think that king g7 is about as reasonable a move as any in the position. Basically, from Gada's point of view, he hasn't given up on this idea of one day playing h5, h4, and if his king were on g7, he could slide his rook over to h8 to make that possible.
That's right. So unlike white, his king is kind of stuck there in g1. I mean, we could play king f1 and e2 to play rook h1, but then our pawn on g2 would be pretty tender. So instead, we will probably keep ours, but king g7, rook h8, h4 is a serious possibility.
Right. Surprising move, queen f6 by Gada Kamsky, basically saying, take the pawn on h5, I dare you, and if you don't, by the way, I'm setting up a bishop c3 kind of skewer to go after the rook. Let's just take a quick look at what in the world Gada has in mind in case of knight takes h5. I'm assuming the same move that we had seen earlier would still apply in this case. Queen h6, chasing the knight back to f4. So white's a pawn up, but look at this open h file. Rook, which rook? One of them. Rook d7 or rook f7.
Pleasant choice.
And you're setting up for for a mating idea of rook h.
Well, this is really interesting because if we play something like king to f1 to try to, at some point if we play king f1 to try to get away from it, you might be able to lock it in with a weird-looking move like bishop f3.
Mm-hmm. And in case of takes, this threat of queen h1 checkmate. It's very, very lucky for white. He does have this queen d5 to get rid of that f3 pawn.
That's true.
But if not for that, he would be losing. So that is the type of tactical opportunity that Gada would be looking for. So how's this for a different approach for Levon? After we reach this position, could I at all essay this crazy move, e3, e4, allowing my king to be exposed? Very dangerous double-edged play by Aronian if he were to allow this.
And a very messy position indeed.
Yeah. But has Gada calculated it accurately, though? Because if the attack doesn't work, it will backfire, in fact. And it's not just a question of missing, but missing really, really badly, so much so that white might end up in, frankly, a winning position. So,
although we could take on e4 here as well. So we don't actually have to take a check right away, because now there's going to be something hanging on b1 at the end of this variation.
Very good.
So we would start with, we wouldn't start with queen h1 check. Move order is always really important, because then king e2 would actually attack the queen.
Exactly.
But rather capture on e4 first, and now queen h1, and not a good episode of Take My Rook.
True. King would have to step up, and that would leave the rook unprotected, and that would be winning for black. No question about that one. Okay, we'll go back.
So some danger here for Levon Aronian, but
well, we're just looking about the captures.
If he captures on h5, of course he has other options.
Indeed he does.
So let's see, after queen f6, what other possibilities might he consider?
I was just loving
grabbing pawns.
Oh,
continue.
Yeah, I was just loving the pawn grab for a moment, but okay. Besides that, he could play a quiet defensive move, simply bringing his rook up to b3 and for stalling that threat of bishop c3. By the way, now that the rook is on b3, that variation we just played through, the rook would not be a target in that case. And here, I suppose, Gada would go for a similar idea of rook d7, followed by rook h7, still playing for the h5, h4 kingside attack.
Yeah, rook b3 looks kind of awkward though.
Doesn't it? It's like, okay, it's not the greatest rook we've ever had, rook b3.
I know you've been trying to play e4 all game.
Mm-hmm. Well, unfortunately, again, e5,
Just bishop
e4.
to c3. I was looking to see if something like, somehow I could make that work, but I don't think so.
Yeah.
Because knight h5, bishop takes d2, knight takes f6, and in the end, black is up a piece.
Precisely. 2 bishops for black, a single bishop for white, winning position for black in that case. So bishop c3 is serious. Maybe we should just simply get our rook out of the way, but then why did we play rook e1 earlier?
And you've been trying to play e4 for so long.
Right.
That would really cut your chances.
Precisely. Annoyingly so.
Another idea is to play something like knight d5. Do you think he's considering that?
Yes, after knight d5, giving black the opportunity of going into bishops of opposite color. Probably he would decline that opportunity, tip your hat and say you've got a nice knight, but you still haven't addressed how you're going to deal with h5 and h4. You've just got a good knight for the moment.
That's true. Yeah, I agree. I like the move queen g5. Our knight doesn't do anything massive right now, and we still can't play e4 because that move queen g5
as actually pinned the pawn, as it turns out. So the knight's going to stay on f4. So we're contemplating either rook b3, rook d1, and let me get a refresh because we are getting concerned about the clock. 11 minutes, 12 minutes for Gata, 24 for Aronian. Still nothing serious in the way of time trouble.
Nothing serious, but there could be some interesting decisions for Gata as we play the next 13 moves, and he's not going to be able to go into a tank for any of them.
Exactly. He'll have to play quite quickly, in fact. So again, difficulties for our commentators as we struggle to understand how the von Aronian is going to put pressure on U.S. champion Gata Kamsky here.
That's right. I mean, it's starting to look pretty decent for Gata.
Yes. And just a lot of strange moves here. Queen d1, queen d2, bishop c2. Not too impressed by this. I know it's probably not what Aronian is going to play, but let's give this whole line of play once more.
Oh, another look, yeah.
Yeah, another look, because it's rather critical. How is a position as silly as this looking like? Now, in this case, White's king is going for a walk, and it looks like all I've managed to do is invite the black queen, into a very powerful attacking position. I don't see any benefit.
This looks like a happy position for black.
Yeah, I don't see any benefit whatsoever for white here. So this line of play really doesn't inspire at all.
No, that can't be played, so...
No. And once more,
So we kind of need at least we kind of want the knight on f4 to protect g2 for the time being.
Right.
Even though there are some tactics. As you pointed out, a lot of times the bishop f3 sacrifice could just be met by capture, queen d5 check.
Right.
Because of the poor position of the black king for the moment. So
right.
Maybe we could, but if we play king f1, then he just switches up the move order on us again and takes on f4 and then plays queen to h1 jack.
And
so that's the problem we've been having.
Right, and once again,
we would really like to remove the bishop on c6. No.
True. I was just trying to fathom whether this is crazy. My king was nice, safely tucked away, and suddenly in this position,
D5,
in the middle of the board, I mean, all I am is inviting a horrendous attack by black. So I just don't think, I think the pawn on h5 is poisonous, and I simply can't grab it as desirable as it is.
The problem is that if we don't take the pawn, then black's going to get an attack as well. So
right, damned if I do and damned if I don't, right?
That's why, we're trying to look for some kind of... So after queen f6, let's take a... We've tried knight takes pawn, we've tried rook b3, and you also
played
tried...
rook d1, sliding over, but in those cases where I'm not capturing the pawn, this idea of breaking up white on the king side is more than just annoying.
Yeah, it just doesn't look pleasant at all.
So maybe this move, queen d2, is just simply wrong, and Levon has missed that opportunity that he had to play e3, e4 earlier. Just to go back a few moves to show what I meant, I believe it was around these parts that I was stumping for e4. Or maybe it was actually back. Oops, I went too far. Apologies. In any case, let's just look at what's the situation that Aronian is facing. There is a twin threat in the position for black. Gadakamsky threatening bishop c3, skewering an exchange, as well as h5, h4. And Levon has got to come up with something extra special here in this position, else he's going to be in trouble.
Yeah, this move, queen f6, is great. I love this move. Kind of just a double attack, really.
Right.
But a weird double attack in that, bishop c3 is a clear attack, and h4 is more of a positional.
Precisely.
Positional idea, and just unexpected double attack. A great move.
Okay. I'm frustrated by my inability to get in, to capture the pawn as well as to get in this move e3, e4. So let's just see if Levon Aronian allows black this opportunity of getting in h5, h4. Are there any chances of perhaps being able to use this rook to go along the side? This looks very dangerous for white, though. It looks to me like white's king is in more trouble than black's.
You can capture on g3 here, and
well, this was where I'm a little bit worried that my queen is going to be in a pin.
Yeah, exactly.
I wanted to go here.
And then I was thinking queen g5 could be in the air as well, and
precisely.
You're pinned, I'm attacking you twice, and I'm ready to take on e4 and add another attacker to f4. So this looks pretty scary.
Yeah, this looks disastrous. There's no question. This looks like just simply no can do.
Well, out of nowhere, Levon Aronian and under some pressure here, hunkering down. He's been thinking for quite a while in this position. I think he must have had something in mind and underestimated the danger, or perhaps even missed the move queen to f6, because it's pretty brilliant.
Well, yeah, it's a sly way of getting in a double attack. With the queen, when the queen was on e8 and not bothering anybody, I think Levon had basically put away out of his mind this attacking move h5, h4. Now that he's suddenly facing it once again, he's going, why on earth did I allow this double attack? And now he's under pressure.
Yeah, so Levon Aronian digging deep to try to find some way to defend here. We've been getting lots of comments to our hashtag Sinquecup. Thanks for chiming in, and we hope you all join us tomorrow, too, for a couple hours earlier. And we've got Daniel Wrench from chess.com, and he said, according to Chess Mike, every bar in the city is showing the chess match. The Sinquefield Cup chess match, turning away college football fans. I know that's awesome. And I don't know, judging from the number of exclams, it's possible that tweet's hyperbolic, but I love it. I'll take claim to that.
Me too. That's
St.
nice.
Louis chess has overtaken football. We didn't think this day would come so soon, but here we are.
In the Central West End.
We started from the bottom with chess, and now all over.
all over.
We love it. But it's true that I was at the Sub-Zero, which is right next door, the sushi bar, and
Yes.
I saw chess on Fox Sports Midwest, and everybody at the table just started screaming.
Cool. I love
and
it.
then other people in the place were like, "What are they screaming about?"
Oh, those exciting Queens Indians, man. They just really get your blood boiling.
They do.
Mhm.
And Grandmaster Maurice actually has a comment for us on chess being replaced by football.
No. No. That's not going to happen anytime soon. You know, when I go to the games, I remember being at the Rams game earlier this week on Sunday where the players got to go on the field, and also at the St. Louis Cardinals game where Rex Sinquefield threw out the first pitch and the players were on the Jumbotron. I really felt like chess had arrived. I mean, it's a very nice moment for us as chess fans to get that kind of recognition in that kind of realm. I always fantasize when I'm in a stadium like that of seeing chess on the big screen in that way, in a big stadium with 50,000 fans going crazy. But I'm not sure our sport can possibly get to that level. We'll see with all these initiatives here in St. Louis. But for now, I'm sure college football is quite secure. Back to you, Jen and Yaz.
Well,
You don't have to be
he's
as big as
right.
football for chess to be much bigger than it is now. So
Well, exactly. Yeah. I mean, chess has had a very, very difficult time after the days of Bobby Fischer, when Bobby Fischer withdrew from chess from the 1972 to 1992 period. And actually, you know, in thinking about it, the biggest chess matches in the United States were somehow, they always involved Garry Kasparov. The Deep Blue match, his match with Viswanathan Anand in 1995, his match with Anatoly Karpov in 1990 in New York. So really it's been either Bobby Fischer or Garry Kasparov that has inspired chess on TV. But it's nice that, well...
Maybe Magnus will bring it up there. He certainly looks good on camera.
He does.
And we have another thought from Maurice.
Well, I'd just like to jump to the game. We have not been really paying attention to the clock as closely as we need to, because Levon Aronian, after this move, queen to f6, has gone into a hyper deep think. And if you look at the clock times now, he's down to 7 minutes and 16 seconds and counting down. This move, queen f6, has really shocked him. Remember, we talked about Kamsky being at a time disadvantage, but it is Aronian now with the deficit on the clock, with Kamsky at 12:15. They still have to make 13 moves. Now remember, he's getting 30 seconds back in increment every move he makes. So 13 moves times 30 seconds, 6.5 minutes. So he really has over 12 minutes left in the game, but it's still 13 moves in a situation where he is under heavy attack, and he has in fact captured the pawn on h5, daring Kamsky now to attack him. He has ripped off the pawn. After all that thought, this game's about to get wild, and both sides in some interesting time pressure at the moment. Back to you, Jen and Yaz.
Wow, this game is just getting super hot just as they're reaching 40th move, which is treacherous for them, but thrilling for us. So please don't go away. We are getting some comments. Chess Network tweeted at Sinquefield Cup that the c6 bishop is the MVP of this game. It strikes at g2, it observes the weak point at d5, and it prevents any rook invasion on the 7th rank. And that's one of the reasons why both Grandmasters Yasser Seirawan and Garry Kasparov are always so fond of those two bishops.
Right.
Because of points like this, it can do defense and attack so much better at the same time as a knight can.
Exactly. Now, when we had gone through our analysis, Jen, very reluctantly, I must add, I had to come to the conclusion that that pawn on h5 was poisonous, and our main line was queen h6, attacking the knight. I didn't see any choice from White's point of view, but he had to slip back with the knight, and then I'm not 100% sure which rook, but I went with rook d7.
This feels right, because if you move the other rook to h7, then f5 might be hanging in the variation.
That's right. So rook d7, and now White is facing this obviously powerful threat of a battery, and the queen is about to invade down the h-file. Now, how White's king is going to escape the threats it's not going to be easy. I mean, how is he going to do that? Maybe he should play the move
You
E3.
looked at E4, and then we talked about rook H7.
King
And
F1.
it looks like we have some more moves in.
Oh, we
Is that
do?
what no, I think we're about to get more moves in. Give us a sec. Okay.
Right.
So after King F1, we were looking at takes on E4.
And this was maybe where, instead of hanging this rook on B3, on B1, pardon me, I need, well, I'll tell you what.
You want to try refreshing the board?
All right, let's do that. Let's refresh and just get up to date.
Okay, yeah.
With,
So now
with
we're
the
up to date.
time.
Right.
The times are 24 to 12.
No. We got them right here on the board right here. We got 7 minutes and 50 seconds for Aronian and 12 minutes for Gadakamsky.
And I believe we have seen Queen H6, and I believe we have seen Knight F4. So we're looking at the move Rook D7.
So now Kamsky's thinking about the most accurate way here to bring a rook into the game to do a little mini rover.
Yes.
And rook up just a little bit.
No. Right. Well, here, I mean, I'm flummoxed because I really don't like doing something desperado like F2, F3. That feels all wrong to me. But maybe here, White could look for some salvation, but definitely it's in Black's favor.
Oh, that looks pretty terrible.
It does.
And if I really wish we could trade off those bishops. If we could get a stake in the position with our bishop on C2, but I can't figure out a way to do it because if our queen was on D1, we would have the nice little rejoinder here, bishop A4.
Right.
Which would be so clutch at this exact moment, but we don't have it.
And this bishop on C2 is a very passive bishop. And again, I'll agree with the Twitter feed comment that the bishop on C6 is the all-star for Black in this position. And maybe it's just time to get on our horse and start running.
Yeah, we tried that before.
And still that didn't. Okay.
Well, we didn't like that. We didn't like that they could just take on F4 and play Queen H1 check, Queen takes G2, and it just looked pretty terrible, to be fair.
Okay, so let's give it another look-see. How about Rook B3? Rook H7, so you've got this terrible threat of checkmate in 1. I have to run like rabbit. And now how are you going to kill me, Janet? Take on F4 or, sorry?
Probably I was going to just take on F4 and then take on H1 because, as you pointed out earlier, bishop F3 didn't quite do the job.
Well, here was the reason why I brought the rook up, because I'm hoping that after a move like queen takes G2, well, I don't see anything better than rook E3. But this is just a free attack for Black. In fact, you may just have a checkmate after all. Something like this, check, and one of our favorite mates.
Oh, very nice. Probably you would have had to run over to D3 instead somewhere in that variation, but that wouldn't be pretty too. Then you would just lose all your whole second rank, basically.
Yeah,
pawns would start dropping like flies. Yeah. So.
And gotta look.
It looks like God is about to play Rook D7. I sense that it looks like he's reaching. He's reaching for a move. We see here in the webcam, and what did he play?
He's already played Rook D7, and he switched his rook all the way across to the H7 rank.
And we do have this.
So we have Rook D7, and now what move after Rook D7? Knight D5 was played.
Okay, so we thought that Knight D5 might occur as well, so you've got to bring that rook back from B3.
Exactly.
So after Rook to D7, we have Knight to D5.
And then Rook swings over, our patented checkmate in 1 threat.
Can we patent that? Nice. Nobody else can ever checkmate us.
Nobody else can checkmate like us.
And we've got Grandmaster Maurice Ashley for some patented commentary.
Well, Jen, the game is definitely heating up, and it's getting crazy in here right now. It looks as though the computer has decided that Aronian is actually only a tiny bit worse and has a forcing line that basically invites the black queen in, only to expel it a few moves later. Take a look at this line. I'm not sure if this is what he wants to play, but the move Knight D5 as he has played, and now Rook to H7, and now this shifty king move queen h1 check and king up to e2, and then queen takes g2, and now a move I'd be terrified to play, rook g1, allowing this check, and the king dropping back to f1, and you see this queen is posted up in a fantastic position, but it is also trapped in White's camp. This moves like bishop d1 followed by bishop c2. This queen really can't escape under good circumstances. The suggestion by the computer is rook to h2, allowing this move, knight e7 check, king up, and then knight takes, and this is how you eliminate this bishop, and then quite possibly just play queen d5 to try to shut all of the action down. After a trade, black does have a strong bishop and this passed pawn, but looking at it, it's hard to see how white would actually win this position. I mean, black would actually win this position from here because this pawn is always going to be under pressure. The rook has the b file. The king can go to e2 at some point in the game. And it looks like white probably would be able to save this position. So hold your horses. Aronian's not quite dead yet. It looks as if there might be a method to his madness. Jen and Yas?
I don't know. I think that he couldn't have wanted to go to this by choice, though.
No,
I think he found the best defense out of necessity.
Right.
Otherwise, he wouldn't have gone in the tank so long after queen f6.
Right. I think it was just that queen f6 did unnerve him and exposed this twin threat of bishop c3 at h5, h4. He underestimated. In the final position that Maurice brought to our attention, it's quite true that white has good defensive chances, but for any of the people in the audience who play Benoni defense, this would be a dream position for anybody who plays the Benoni. Only two results possible, black to win or draw. I like black's chances very much. Hard to win, hard for Gada to win, yes, but would he try? Yes. He'd be very, very, very
and
happy.
You can see him looking actually pretty confident today at the board. Sometimes you see him with his face in his hands, but here he looks pleased.
Yeah. Well, is that a look of pleasure? I'm not
confident. I would say confident.
Okay. All right. Let's go back to let me refresh the board so we can get a chance of the times, and they have followed the analysis thus far. Queen takes g6, queen takes g2, I beg your pardon, and this kind of hard to find move, rook g1, although again, because it's maybe necessary, maybe not all that difficult, queen f3 check, Maurice was mentioning king f1, and after the move rook h2, also in this case suggested by the computer, putting pressure on this pawn, this was how we got that variation. Knight went down, checked, and traded itself for that terrible MVP, that light squared bishop.
That's right. I mean, rook g1. Yeah, that's a little good defensive find here by Levon.
Yes. Did he play it?
He spent time. Yeah.
And
he did play it. You know, he spent time to take it on h5 because he's going to be losing if he doesn't have that move, and that's why he went. You don't see players of the elite level going to that kind of tank that often, right? They tend to be managing their time pretty well.
Exactly.
And here it proved that he was right to do it.
Well, it would just be the cruelest of ironies if in this position, for the third time in the tournament where Gada was really going on the attack and pressing, and he did it against again Carlsen.
Mm-hmm.
F5, G5, G4, H5. He was throwing the patties, and then against Nakamura, he too was on the attack, and again with Aronian. So please Gada, don't lose this game. I mean, he'll stop attacking for the rest of his life if he were to lose this game. So after rook g1, not too much of a choice here. Queen f3 check, king f1, and now maybe if I was black, I would just try to find another move that wouldn't necessarily allow
knight e7,
knight e7. But the question is, do I have anything stronger than rook h2 at the moment?
And is there some kind of perpetual threat here as well? I mean, your queen doesn't really have a lot of squares to go to is the issue.
Well, okay, let's say I just made a move for argument's sake, rook f7, random move. You can't hit me right away because c4 would be hanging.
Yeah, with check, exactly.
With check.
Yeah, and that's a bit of a problem.
So Right. But what Maurice said was really annoying in its truthfulness, in the fact that Black's queen is actually trapped. It's not going anywhere. I mean, so...
Right, so you could maybe even...
It's frustrating for the second player when you get a circumstance like that.
Yeah, Maurice?
Well, you know, I like to read body language as well, and if you look at the table, Gata looks determined, but Aronian is walking around. I mean, he doesn't seem as if he's scared, he's terrified. It's pretty clear to him, and look at him walking completely away from the board now, out of camera shot. It's pretty clear to him that there's probably no mate. I mean, he's casually looking at the score sheet, walking around saying, you've got no attack. I'm not worried about this. If you want to trade off the knight for your light squared bishop, which I've just essentially plugged out of the game, then the opposite color bishop attack is probably not going to work since he's secured all those key squares around his king. And Gata is looking now, trying to figure out, what do I have really? I mean, I chased his king out of the middle and there's no mate. And he might have to just accept the fact that the mating attack is not there and trades are about to happen, which might simply equalize the game. And here he is thinking in this moment. Remember, the time pressure is still there for both players. So let's see how this proceeds. Gata needing to not lose at least. If he loses this, like you said, Yaz, he's never attacking ever again. Back to you guys.
True.
Oh, don't tell that. We don't want the kids at home to lose 3 games and then stop playing chess.
Exactly. It's frustrating. All right. So if I'm in Kamsky's shoes here, I really don't like... Okay, that Benoni ending with opposite color bishops makes sense after rook h2. But if I were in Gata's shoes, I'd sure give this move king g7 a deep glance. The idea here is just to sidestep.
And we do have that move, so...
We do?
Yes, king g7 has been played.
Okay.
Just sidestepping that check and, another...
But there is this weird variation. Let's say white played knight e7 anyway, and I was just looking at some strange-looking line after bishop e4, bishop d1, just to show that the queen can be trapped. But that's not the end of this story here, Jen. I do have this move, queen h1, with our old favorite threat of capturing the rook and checkmate.
And what's your idea? If I take right away, you're just getting both of my rooks.
This is a case of take my rooks. Yes, that's right.
Oh, and now we've got just 2 pieces for... We got 2 rooks for the queen after the knight extricates itself.
One day.
And yeah, it
don't go too far because...
yeah, it looks dominating for the rooks here, sure.
Well, gee, I'm still kind of confused still. I'm guessing moves like queen here with ideas like this. Bishop here, queen here.
Okay, so you got some counterplay going as well, but I get bishop f3 check in here.
Ooh, that's a good one. A good one indeed. You get to take a bishop with check, and I'm hoping for some kind of a draw by repetition. Still.
Looks like I should be able to get out somehow.
Yes,
I'm
exactly.
Something like rook f7.
Yeah, you would be robbed if you would feel robbed if you didn't win this.
But I understand you're also attacking f5, so it's a little bit, it's messy, that's for sure. A lot of these variations are quite messy.
Well, let me refresh the board and get a look at the times. And 6 minutes is definitely heated up.
Well, just 6 moves till time control as well. And we do have queen d1 on the board.
Queen d1.
So white has offered a trade of queens. Understandably, he wants to try to trade queens in this position. You can't really blame him.
Not one bit. So this move, king g7, was probably a little bit more useful than the move rook h2. And now there's really nothing Gata can do to avoid this trade of queens. Probably he's simply going to have to swallow his pride and trade queens in order not to get a weakness, a weak pawn on the f3 square. And can he make anything out of this position? Still, though, from Gada's point of view, he's the one pressing here. I like Black's position.
Sure, you like his activity a lot, but some of the pawns really, you can't make any levers, as you like to say.
Yeah, that's true.
So this is all about piece activity and rook activity. It's not about trying to queen a pawn or something like that.
No, clear.
And what are your thoughts on this, Maurice?
Well, it seems that Aronian missed an opportunity to stop suffering. I mean, maybe he thinks he can still win. I don't know. But his queen d1, I agree with you, Yaz, is just allowing Black to have a very safe, very simple advantage. But he had another move that could have really made Gada sweat and wonder if he could have possibly won this position. Instead of playing queen to d1, he could have challenged the Black queen with the move rook to b3. And now suddenly the move e4 is showing up with threats to the queen. And this would have been quite dangerous. The best response for Gada would have been to take on d5, and then after taking back on d5, Gada could play the move c4. And this could lead to the line bishop d1, queen e4, and I know we hate it, but a straight repetition of moves as a line, and that could have led to a draw if he had found those moves. So it looks as though Aronian had an opportunity to squelch all of Black's activity, kill the position, and save himself any more suffering, but he's chosen to do a different path, which definitely looks slightly better for Black. Back to you guys.
That's a tough line to find, especially with not a lot of time on the clock.
True.
Although it would have been kind of cool to have both of our games today be bishop repetition.
Bishop repetitions. There would have been some irony for sure. Queen d1, I expected queen takes d1 and so forth and so on. Gada has played bishop takes d5.
So giving up one of those beautiful bishops.
Well, it was the MVP. And we are ending up in that Benoni ending. Let's say after a move like queen takes d5, queen takes d5, c takes d5. Black is for choice thanks to the fact that he has a passed pawn in the position, whereas white does not.
Right, unlike the other line where we were talking about how it wasn't as much about pawn, but more about the possibilities of attacking with those two bishops.
That's it. And now the question is, after king f6, if white just decides to hold the ship steady, play a move like king e2, at the moment, this rook on the b file has an excellent file. This rook on the h file is excellent. Offsetting rooks, bishops of opposite color.
No, the main edge for Black is just that c pawn and the nicely placed king that might go to e5 at some point.
Right.
But is it enough at this level? Because remember, if rooks ever come off the board, then it's just going to be a dead draw.
Then it's going to be a dead draw.
So I think it's hard to see how Black's going to create something from this. Like, what would your plan be as Black? I know this is one of your expertise, Yasser,
Sure.
trying to squeeze blood from a stone, and sometimes succeeding.
A little maneuvering.
Yeah, how are we going to get our pieces? What would you do if I just put my bishop from d1 to c2? What's your dream here? Are you going to try to get your king on e5 somehow?
Right. I'm not saying I can set up my dream position. I'm not even sure what my dream position might be, by the way. But something along the lines of bishop c3 and getting my king to e5 would probably be a very good start. If I could win that pawn for free, well, then we could start talking, but it's going to be really uphill battle to win that pawn.
For free, yeah, that's going to be hard because I can always just stick a rook on d1, and then how do you continue attacking it? I mean, that's one of the reasons why bishops of opposite color in the endgame are drawish, because it's difficult to pile up enough pressure on one point, right?
Precisely. Like after, for example, something like rook h1, trade a pair of rooks and get a position like this, the king could just set up a station, a blockading station, pardon me, on the c4 square, and I just don't see winning chances here. I think this is a draw, not even a suffering one, actually. the king will just be very good here. So I don't really see a good way for Gada to press.
But you like the structure for black, but you don't see
Absolutely.
a way to really make inroads.
Well, the difference is that if this rook, for argument's sake, was over here on b6, and maybe I had opportunities like rook a6 and utilizing this pawn by being able to play c4, c3, and putting a rook on b2, sure, like we saw in Gada Kamsky's game with Magnus Carlsen, he had that wonderful pass pawn on the 7th rank. There's something there, but this is such a long way from getting there.
And we do have some moves coming in, so instead of maneuvering that king to e2, it looks like there's a massive trade on h1 being arranged.
All right.
It should be even more drawish.
Oops. Oops. And Maurice?
And we've got Grandmaster Maurice Ashley with his thoughts on this.
Yuck. What can I tell you? This position is obviously dead draw now. Obviously at the highest level, when you play great chess, when both sides attack well, defend well, then the games will end in draws. As much as we despise it, particularly as American fans, where everything has a tiebreak, whether it's football, goes into overtime, whether it's baseball going into extra innings, the same thing with basketball, even hockey, which can sometimes have ties, but then of course you get the shootout at the end. We really don't like to see draws, but it's not as though these two players tried to play for a draw. In fact, they really tried to attack, especially in this case, Gada Kamsky trying to get a win. Aronian had to defend himself against a surprise move, queen to f6, and it just looks like the position has petered out. And also, Aronian's chances of possibly taking first place will simply disappear in this moment as well. He won't have that much to play for tomorrow, which would be to Magnus Carlsen's benefit for sure. But remember, Hikaru can still catch Magnus in the event of a draw if he beats Gada Kamsky. So this tournament is still up in the air, lots to play for, but it looks as though this game will certainly peter out into a pretty simple looking draw.
Made move 40 and they're continuing to play moves. Both of them are playing quite rapidly. And I think Levon is, neither of them are offering a draw. Levon perhaps thinking that because of Kamsky's superior structure here, it's the onus is on Kamsky to offer the draw. Would you say that's accurate?
That's right. White should not, and they have offered a draw.
And both games today here at the Sinquefield Cup have been drawn. We saw a really bloody day yesterday, and today peace broke out, but not without tons of fighting chess along the way.
It was a deserved peace. I think it was a good. This was a good round of play. I liked this game especially.
And I think Gada feels a little bit relieved. Solid draw with black here. He was on the upper hand of that. And it's nice to see him smile. So Gada Kamsky still in last place in this tournament, but definitely showing his chops in this game with that really well-timed queen to f6 move, which almost straddled Levon, and especially the point at which it was on the clock and the time control, that really could have toppled him over.
Well, lesser grandmasters could have easily lost that position with white. Rook g1 was just a fine move, and it's ironic that black didn't have more after that.
Right, and just seeing rook g1 much earlier and then just like snatching the pawn and knowing this is the critical moment. If I screw up now, I could lose the game, and that would be embarrassing. So.
Well, never mind embarrassing. It's sad.
Sad, exactly. And we've got Grandmaster Maurice Ashley with some thoughts as we wait for the players to come down and be interviewed.
Well, again, I like to look at body language, and it really looked as though Kamsky wasn't just relieved, he was almost happy. I mean, it's odd because this draw also pretty much cements his last place finish. The best he can do, even with a win tomorrow, I think, is to tie Levon Aronian for the bottom half if Levon actually loses tomorrow. So it'll be interesting to find out his thoughts there on only drawing the game and feeling what looked like he was kind of happy. Levon, on the other hand, has to be disappointed with this result. He started off the tournament with such a whimper, with a horrible blunder, and now his chances have simply dried up completely to win the tournament. He can only play for pride if he can maybe beat Magnus tomorrow, but he'll have a tall order with the black pieces. Certainly, though, Nakamura will be going for it full bore. He has absolutely nothing to lose almost. I mean, maybe if he loses the game, and Aronian could only tie him with a draw. So expect to see a definite bloody fight between the two Americans, oddly enough, in the last round of the Sinquefield Cup. Jen and Yaz?
Just to be clear, at the moment, Magnus is +2 and Levon is even.
Right, so we've got 3.5 for Magnus, 3
Mm-hmm.
for Nakamura, 2.5 for Levon, and 1 for Gadakamsky, right?
Well, just to postulate for a moment, if Levon were to win and Gadakamsky were to win, then tomorrow we would have a two-way tie for first between Levon Aronian and Magnus Carlsen, and they would be in an overtime game, right?
Wait a second. Wait, no. And tomorrow Magnus and Levon Aronian are going to be playing?
Right. And
so
if
you're saying if Gada also defeats Nakamura. Yeah.
Right. But if
Aronian
Aronian wins, that pulls him up to +1 while dragging Magnus down to +1.
So we still have two
a chance.
must-win situations here.
Absolutely.
For both of our opponents with the black pieces tomorrow. So
right.
Pretty thrilling indeed. And
we are now getting ready
we're
for
getting
our
ready
first
for
interview with U.S. champion Gadakamsky.
Yeah, and I'll remind you guys again, tomorrow, 11 a.m. local, 12 Eastern.
2 hours
Don't
earlier.
tune in at the regular time or you'll miss a lot of the fun. And we do have Grandmaster Maurice Ashley with our U.S. champion, Gadakamsky, playing a very interesting game today against Lev Aronian.
Thanks, Jen, and thanks, Yas, for pointing that out. Thank goodness, in fact. Aronian does have something to play for tomorrow, needing to defeat Magnus Carlsen to maybe have a chance at first place. Gada, you had a very interesting game today. It seemed like the high quality that you're used to playing. What did you think about how the game proceeded?
Well, okay, I played Dutch defense, and since I wanted to know what he prepared for his line against Magnus, and actually I didn't expect he repeat the line, but he then I played knight c6, and he played bishop g3, and I started thinking. But I think black had no problems in the opening, except that for some reason I played this knight f3 exchange and then followed by e5, which I thought was really weird afterwards, because white gets all the free play in the queen side, and he can just be strategically winning if I didn't have this g5, g4 maneuver. But once I found g4, g4, or g5, g4, I think black is okay. And after that, the game was more or less equal throughout the way. So at the end, it was just scary looking thing, but I think it was equal position.
Now you say scary looking for white, right? Because it looked like you had some attacking chances.
Yes, absolutely. Scary looking for white.
Were you surprised that there was nothing more coming out of there? You did have a queen coming in on g2, then f3, but it didn't seem as though you could pressure his position at all.
Not really, because white is so solid. I mean, he has this outpost on d5, and anytime I want to do something, I'll have to sacrifice, and white has enough resources for defense, and I think it was a pretty solid, equal game. So it was okay.
Now you seem to be in a good mood after the game. I mean, you haven't been able to win a game yet at the tournament, and this could have been one. And now you have to face Nakamura tomorrow. What's your attitude, seeing that this wasn't your best tournament?
Well, I go and play every game like I can, and what do you? Okay, I'm gonna play chess tomorrow. That's all I can say.
Now, obviously, Hikaru has to beat you tomorrow in order to have a chance to win the tournament. Actually, he doesn't have to. He could also draw and Levon could win. So there's all kinds of scenarios. Do you expect Hikaru to come with all swords and guns blazing?
I have no idea, but I expect myself to play a good game tomorrow. So that's the only thing at this point I'm interested in, because obviously I'm in the last place, so my situation is not going to change anytime soon. But the point is to play well at least one game, because so far in this tournament I missed so many chances and so many inaccuracies. I'm not content with the level of my play here. So, okay.
All right, well, thanks for a struggle today, a good game, and we wish you the best in tomorrow's game.
Thank you, Maurice.
U.S. champion Gadakamsky after a pretty dynamic draw. We'll see what happens tomorrow, Jen and Yaz.
See, the quality game that Gada played today, I mean, he's playing against the world's #2 player. He has black, he's under pressure, and he rebuffed Levon's attempt so easily. I mean, you think to yourself, wow, what a great player he is. And darn it, he's got nothing to show for it. He's in last place and struggling. It's not fair.
Well, yeah, I mean, this tournament is just so strong. It's amazing. Like, you look at Kemsky's games and, like, the game against Carlsen, he didn't really do much wrong and he lost.
Right.
Today's game, he would have probably scored a win against
Any
most
lesser
players.
mortal, yes.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, it really is incredible, and it just shows why this is, not just on paper, the strongest tournament in American history, but also I think it deserves that, looking at the quality of the games here.
Agreed. Absolutely.
Yeah, and we are going to get a chance to speak with Aronian as well, as he tries to win the tournament. He still has a chance. Even though we said it earlier, we should remind players that there will be a playoff if there's a tie for first place, and that'll start with a 2-game rapid match and then go to a Blitz Armageddon. So.
Got it. And the question for me will be, I'll have to ask Maurice, if Levon considered this move Rook B3 at the end. That was a cute little trappy move.
All right, we will find out, I'm sure. Grandmaster Maurice Ashley here with Grandmaster and number 2 in the world, Levon Aronian.
Thanks, Jen and Yaz. Well, Levon, first of all, thank you for coming on the show. You had really almost to win today to have a very strong chance of taking first place. But with a draw, you still haven't been knocked out of the first place chances. What did you feel going into the game and how you played as well today?
Yeah, I was planning to, get a solid position and try to push, but then I actually missed his G5, and then the position became very complex. I wasn't sure what's happening, so. After I got this really strong move, Queen F6, I got a bit worried.
That came as a surprise to you. We were looking at it and thinking that White had to start defending.
Yeah, I thought that I should play Rook B3, but then I thought, it's a bit passive. So I thought Knight H5 is risky, but, I don't really have a big choice. So it either works or I just lose.
It didn't indeed look dangerous. Yasser wants me to ask you about this move in this moment, Rook to B3 instead of Queen D1, with the idea of playing for E4, trapping the queen. It doesn't seem to win the game. It just seems to force the draw. Did you take a look at this, or was your mind just simply on Queen D1 and muting all the possibilities?
Yeah, I actually thought that, he has this, because in this moment, I saw that, in this moment, I saw that he cannot take on G3, because I play Bishop D1.
Right.
So I thought with King G7 and Queen E4, Knight C3. With King G7, if I play Rook B3, maybe Bishop G3 here is possible.
That's a sharp line, but I think you're still winning in that line.
All right. So, I didn't really have much time to think over it. Was I really in trouble here?
No.
Because I felt that I'm stabilizing.
Yeah, you control the game definitely, but I'm feeling now that you've drawn, you have to beat Magnus Carlsen tomorrow to really have any chance of winning. You also have the black pieces. What are your thoughts about that?
I'll try. I'll try to see what happens. I don't want to go home and think about missing my chances.
So you'll be going for the win tomorrow?
I'll be playing my chess. The way I play, I try to equalize first, and then if I have the chance, play for a win.
All right. Well, good luck in your game, and
thank you very much.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks.
World number 2, Levon Aronian, after a draw, now needing a win with the black pieces to at least tie for first here and force a playoff in the Sinquefield Cup. Jen and Yaz?
The great words of Pal Benko. When you're playing black, first you equalize, then you play for the win. And that's the way it's done at the highest levels. Well, how exciting. It's been a 4-player double round robin tournament, but 3 players will go into tomorrow's game, all hoping to win the tournament.
And still a possibility of a 3-way tie for first.
So still
that would be something.
Right. So everything to play for tomorrow, the final round. And what a weekend we have.
And we've got that starting at 11 a.m. Central Time. Don't forget. One more thought from Grandmaster Maurice Ashley.
Yes, now that I've got my math together, Jen and Yaz, it does look as though there's another alternative we should think about. If Nakamura wins tomorrow and Carlsen loses, Nakamura wins the tournament clear. He doesn't even need a draw. So there's a lot to play for. Lots of players, at least Nakamura and Aronian, desperate for a win. Carlsen, would love to put the hammer down and win the game and just prove that he's not only the number one player in the world, but a deserving candidate for the World Championship title, which he'll be playing for later this year. So an exciting round 6 afoot. It'll be amazing. I can't wait.
I can't wait either. And so many possibilities. We could have a playoff just between Nakamura and Carlsen. We could have a 3-way playoff. We could have Carlsen versus Levon. The possibilities are endless.
But you'll only know if you join us tomorrow.
That's right. So join us tomorrow. Don't forget 11 a.m. Central here in St. Louis and 12 Eastern for those of you on the East Coast. And I'm Jennifer Shahade, and I'm signing off for Grandmasters Yasser Seirawan, Maurice Ashley. Thanks to all of our GM guests today.
Yes,
starting
very
with
nice.
Gary Kasparov and also from 2 Grandmasters from Webster University. We had so much fun, and we hope you will join us tomorrow.